lecture. Mariam is on the road. She will arrive within a couple of minutes, but I will start. Okay, today we'll talk about cases and comparisons. It's very important because next year you will have a class, specific class about comparative politics. That's why getting some insight about comparative methodology may be very helpful to understand what we will discuss in the forthcoming lectures. And comparative politics is one of the main subdisciplines of political science. Okay, we'll talk about unobtrusive research. You may remember in other ways of methods of research, we are affecting what we are finding. For example, if you are conducting poll, you are discussing with, you are talking with respondents and you are constructing their answers. It was the same for in-depth interviews and focus groups and experimental methods. In all of these methods, you are constructing what you are finding. That's why your presence directly affects the outcome. Consequently, some people, they are preferring unobtrusive research, meaning that the researcher didn't intervene to data collection. Content analysis, which we discussed last week, was one of these research methods. And now we are talking about cases and comparisons, comparative method as that kind of method. We'll talk about different comparative strategies. We'll talk about similar versus dissimilar systems, and we'll talk about case study. Comparative strategy is very important because it's one of the important topics of academic works in Turkey, in political science, not Turkey. Simply, let's start by thinking in that way. We had elections. Okay, we may be satisfied or dissatisfied with these elections, but the issue is that if you want to compare these elections, which country would you prefer? Can you compare these results with Brazilian elections or American elections or Peruvian elections? Or we have too many elections. Which is better to make a comparison? Comparative strategy tells us how to compare and what to compare. It's very important because generally people are using one-shot case studies. They don't prefer comparing. They are focusing only in one country. For example, they are looking at case 1 at T0 at any time point. They are looking at variables A, B, C, X, and they see there is no X. And then they are discussing there is no X and the outcome is no Y. And they said that the reason of this outcome, not Y outcome, is A or B or C or not X. Yeah, Mariam, yeah, it's so complicated. Okay, yeah. Let's focus on this case selection issue. Which of these variables, A, B, C, or not X, is the reason of the outcome? My typical example is that Turkey is a kind of democratic country. Why Turkey is a democratic country? A kind of democratic country. At minimal definitions, we are holding regular elections. Turkey is a secular state, for example. Turkey is composed of different ethnic groups. Turkey doesn't have natural resources. Turkey is located between Europe and Asia. Turkey is hosting Galatasaray. Which one explains this situation? Which one explains the fact that Turkey is a democracy? It's not easy. to answer this question. This is the fallacy of case studies, because there are too many reasons, possible reasons, which may explain the outcome. Or you can focus on another case. For example, in Latin America, there are too many democracies. They are holding regular elections at minimal. I'm talking about the minimal definition of elections, minimal definition of democracy. Among them, only one didn't have a military coup since many years. Uruguay, since 1930s. They don't have a military coup. Why? How do you explain? Uruguay is a beautiful country, yes. Uruguay's ethnic composition is different than other Latin American countries. You can drink very nice drinks in Uruguay, etc. Which one explains? It's not easy to understand the real factor if you are focusing on only one case. That's the fallacy. That's the fallacy of one-shot case studies. If you compare case 1 at T0 and T1, if you observe that one of these variables changed, for example, A became A1, it changed, all other remained same, you can say that, okay, considering this time effect, A is the cause because other remains constant. It may be a comparative. It is not a case study. No, it's a comparative study. You are using a one unit, but you are comparing this unit over time. That's the problem of one-shot case study. Okay, but sometimes case studies, they are useful and they are meaningful. For example, if the case is the representative of a group of things, you can use case study. Poland's transition from communism to market society in 1990s. Yeah, it is Poland. If you say that Poland is the typical example, you can say that, okay, I will analyze what happened in Poland, and I will explain factors facilitating transition to democracy or transition to market economy. If it is representative, if it is typical, you can say it. But not at this point, you will have this problem. Is it typical? Is the best case representing the Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, for example, or all other countries? Think about them. Is it representative? Is it typical? Every time they will ask this question, is it typical? And they will give some reasons, some arguments that Poland wasn't typical. Poland had a strong Catholic Church. Many Eastern Bloc countries were atheist, for example. Or Poland had a strong labor force. Perhaps you may remember labor unions, etc., etc. Other countries didn't have. And you can say that, okay, despite all these factors, Poland is the best case. It's something important. Think about Arab Spring. Can you find any country which could the best case, the best example? Think about it. It may be prototypical. It is expected to become typical. The classical example is the Tocqueville study of democracy in America. Perhaps you may know Alexis de Tocqueville. He was a French aristocrat. He was working for the Empire Napoleon III Empire. He visited America. He wrote an excellent book, which is called Democracy in America. Because in 1830s, 40s, America was the only country which had a kind of democracy. It's a very nice book. It's a well-written book. Perhaps if you may read, then argument is very nice. De Tocqueville says that in order to have a good democracy, you need a large middle class. It's something important. But at 1830s, 1840s, there were no democracy to compare. That's why focusing on America may be a good idea to discuss about merits of democracy. It was the prototypical. Another example, reason for using case studies is the Deviant case, an exception to the norm. My example was the military rule in Nigeria. During 1960s, many African countries experienced military coups. Only in Nigeria, military left its position and brought back democracy. Only in Nigeria. Nigeria was a deviant case, exception to the norm. Then you can focus on Nigeria. Generally, at this classroom, I had 2 students during this semester. They are deviant cases. Focusing on them may teach us about the reasons of why students attend or they don't attend to classes. They were deviant cases. Let's think about Arab Spring. Perhaps you may remember they started in 2011, and many of them, they had revolutions. It started from Tunisia, spread out to Algeria, then Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and some other Arab countries. Until last year, we thought that Tunisia was the deviant case because, Egypt experienced a military coup. Libya, there is a civil war. Syria, there is a civil war. Lebanon is a failed state, okay? Only Tunis, seemed to be a successful case. And we were thinking that way until last year. It changed, of course, but it was the deviant case. Think about the heritage of the Ottoman Empire. Which countries became successful to pass to a democracy? Think about the heritage of Ottomans. Forget about Balkans. Balkans is another case. Think about it. Only Turkey, deviant case. You can think in that way, exception to the norm. And you can focus on the crucial case. The example was Syria, because it was a test for democratization in the least favorable conditions. We don't have internet. Okay, that's why. Okay, just a minute. We have a student here. I'm pausing.
Çok trafik var. Çok özür dilerim. İlk defa arabayla geldim.
Okay, I was talking about case studies to summarize. We don't like case studies because it is not to understand which factor or which variable affects the outcome. The example of case study is that you have case 1, for example, you have A, B, C, and not X, and you don't have Y. Which one of them explains the outcome? A, B, C, or not X? You cannot understand it. My classical example is that Turkey is a democracy, quote unquote. Turkey is Turkey is located between Europe and Asia. Turkey is a secular country. Turkey doesn't have natural resources. Which one explains the outcome? Turkey is a democracy. If you look at one case, you cannot understand it. Before your arrival, I was talking about you. You'll see what I did. The issue is that in order to understand it, we need to make a comparison. If you compare situation in one country at T0, and if you compare the situation in this country at T1, it's a comparison. Same country, two different times, you can compare it. Perhaps X, not X, became X, everything remains same, but outcome became Y. Then you can say that, okay, everything remained same, but X changed. That's why I can say it. This is a comparison. But looking at a single country, at a single time point, it's not a comparison. We don't like one-shot case studies. They are not scientific. But there are some conditions which allows us to use these one-shot case studies. It may be representative of the country. Example, Poland. Poland may be the best country which represents the situation in the Eastern Europe during the transition to market economies. It may be typical. When you say that, people say that, no, it's not typical. Okay, Poland has a big Catholic church, for example. None of other countries has that kind of Catholic church. You can say, okay, it affected something like that, but you can't say that it's the typical. They can object, but you can say it's a typical. Think about a typical student. She's a typical student, isn't it? I don't know. Prototypical is something else. It is expected to become typical. The best example is the Tocqueville study of democracy in America. Alexis de Tocqueville was a French aristocrat who visited America during 1840s. He was working for Napoleon III, and he wrote a book about how democracy works in America. The critical point here is that there was not another democracy in the world. America was the only democracy when he wrote this book. That's why it was justifiable. It was the only case. And he underlined in his book the importance of the middle classes for the existence of democracy, middle classes and civil society. He didn't say civil society, but he was talking to civil society. We were talking about divine cases, exceptions to the norm. And then I talk about you. I had two students during this term, they arrived, you are divine cases. Okay, you are exceptions. That's why if you are trying to understand what's going on, it may be good to analyze you, why you are here, because they are not here. The better example is the military rule in Nigeria. During 1960s, in Africa, there had too many military interventions. Only in Nigeria, military go back to its role. Democracy came back. It's a divine case. And then we were talking about Arab Spring. After Arab Spring, until last year, Tunisia was the sole example of survival of democracy. Libya and Syria, they had civil wars. Egypt, we had military intervention. Algeria is not a democracy. Only in Tunisia, there was something like democracy, but then you know what happened. It was the divine case. Why Tunisia? It's something important to discuss. Why it is important? Because people were discussing about the merits of French colonialism. Because other countries, Libya was the colony of first Ottoman Empire, then Italy, and Egypt was the colony of British Empire, and only Tunisia was the colony of French Empire. And they said, okay, that's the heritage of French Empire, and we saw what happened. Yeah, Algeria also, half of Algeria was, okay. It may be crucial case, I was talking about it. It is crucial because you are testing an hypothesis in the least favorable conditions. The best example was democratization in Syria. When I put there when I prepared this class, because there were some initiatives, local initiatives, to stimulate democracy in Syria in 2010, something like that, before the Arab Spring. There were some city councils. They were holding elections, etc., etc., and World Bank and other people were visiting, and they would say that, okay, now it may be good democracy within 10 years, 20 years, etc. It became ironic, even sarcastic, to put it there, because you know what happened in Syria. Archetypical. It forms the category. The classical case is French Revolution, because there is no revolution before French Revolution. French Revolution formed the concept of revolution. What's the revolution? A rapid, radical change. And then we were discussing at the classroom, what about Iranian Revolution? Is there revolution? Is it rapid? Yes. Is it radical? Yes. The issue is that, is it forward? If you add up a third factor, being forward as a characteristic of a revolution, Iranian Revolution is not a revolution. It's not forward. Yeah.
But doesn't it depend on how you frame forward? I mean, it's due to the democratic value, and maybe it's so orientalistic. It's not my view, but
Yeah, you are right, because you cannot imagine. We discussed it. Late Uğur Mumcu discussed with Ahmet Altan this issue for 1 year, something like that. Ahmet Altan said that Iranian Revolution was a revolution, and Uğur Mumcu said that Iranian Revolution wasn't a revolution. It was funny. They say how you frame forward. It's a very modernist way of definition of the West is forward, etc. It's something important. But welcome, third student. Merhaba. We have another student here, friends. Okay. Yeah, these are justifications of using case study. But generally, we don't like case study. Okay, because it doesn't explain anything. Okay, there are two different methods. Try to memorize it. It's not so sophisticated, but it may be confusing. The first method is comparable cases strategy. Comparable cases. Or it is called the method of difference. It means that you have two cases. These cases, they have similarities on A, B, C. Do you see? They are same. A, B, C. In one case, we have X and we have Y. And in other case, we don't have X and we don't have Y. That's the difference. Everything is same. Only X changes. If you are sure that all other things are same, you can see that X is the reason. This is the method of difference. Everything is same, only one variable changes. It's a good strategy. If you can find two totally similar cases. Think about, we were talking about democracy in Turkey because we assume that Turkey is a democracy at minimal definition. Minimal definition means that you are holding regular elections. Okay, that's the minimal definition. Okay, Let's compare Turkey with another country. Which country is most similar to Turkey? That's why we are calling this method as most similar. Okay, try to find a most similar country. Yeah, they are, from this perspective, at the minimal definition, you can say that Brazil. But the issue is that Brazil is bigger than Europe. First, Brazil has 32 different ethnic groups recognized. Brazil has a colonial past. Turkey has never been a colony. Brazil is Catholic. Are they similar? Okay. But it was a good attempt. Think another. Which country is similar? This issue is very critical because, of course, it is not possible to find a totally similar country, but it is possible to find the most similar country. Let's look at Greece. Two Mediterranean countries? Yes. Both of them, they had a pest, autumn pest. Okay. What else?
They have economic crisis, both of them.
Yeah, but it's not a structural factor. Yeah, both of them, they had economic crisis. Indeed, both of them, they have dolmakis, baklavakis, and pilakis. We have that kind of similarities. Okay, are they similar? Yeah. Both of them, they had military dictatorships. You see, it may be meaningful to compare Greece and Turkey. I believe that, yeah, people, they don't prefer because, people think that, okay, we were the empire and they were pariah, and the issue is not that. Do you see? It's not easy. But you can find some other cases. Turkey is a very difficult country to compare because a famous professor wrote an article about uniqueness of Turkey. Turkey has too many characteristics compared to other countries. That's why it's not easy. But think about Arab countries. Is it possible to compare Algeria and Tunisia? Why not? It's possible. Or is it possible to compare Spain and Portugal? It's possible. It is possible to compare Spain, Portugal, and Italy. It is possible to compare Belgium and Netherlands. Or it is possible to compare Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, etc. Not Brazil. Brazil is very big. Okay. You can find that kind of countries, but it's something important. There should be no crucial difference when you compare these units. Okay. This is the method of similarities. The method of difference, think about it, the method of difference, and it is also called most similar systems design. Don't forget it. It's very confusing, but it's very critical. Most similar systems design. Okay. Okay, let's go to the other method, which is called the method of agreement. It is also called most different systems. You have too many cases. They are very different in very different contexts. But whenever you see X, you also see Y, independent of other characteristics. We have three students here. Okay. Three of them, they have very different characteristics, very different personalities. Okay. But there is a common character there. What is it? Okay. And you have woman. You are a woman. If we have three students here, independent of other characteristics, all of them are women. Okay, someone can easily say that, okay, gender matters. But perhaps another factor I cannot see may explain this commonality. Now, do you see, we are looking at commonalities at the outcome, and we are looking at the commonalities at the input. Okay, X, we are looking. It's better because, as I said, it is not easy to find most similar cases, but you can find most different cases. You said Brazil. Guillermo O'Donnell, do you know? I'm not sure you know him. Guillermo O'Donnell, an Argentinian philosopher, wrote a book about bureaucratic authoritarianism. He wrote this book in 1960s and 70s. It became very popular. The logic was very simple. Industrialization in backward countries was creating a large middle class. This large middle class had some political demands, but the political structure doesn't respond to these demands. Conclusion, political crisis. And he was talking about 1970s. As these countries had economic crisis because of foreign exchange shortage, these countries, they had also economic crisis. Economic crisis plus political crisis, outcome revolution. That's the theory. Brazil fits. Turkey fits. Argentina fits. Too many countries had this experience, similar experience, independent of other characteristics. Do you see? This is most different system design. One of the important. Samuel Huntington wrote something like that about political. He wrote something like that: political mobilization divided by societal mobilization. If societal mobilization is bigger than political mobilization, political unrest. This is what he wrote. Political systems in developing societies. You can find too many examples about it. Most different systems are better. That kind of design, comparing all these different cases and to find commonalities. This is very good to analyze. Okay, I have some examples. It's a piece written by a friend of mine, Foreign Policy and Ethnic Conflict, Carolyn James and Özgür Özdamar. They compared Turkey and India. They say that domestic conflicts affect foreign policies. Turkey had a Kurdish problem. India had a Kashmir problem. Turkey had border problems with Syria. India had border problems with Pakistan. Two different countries, do you see? Very different countries, but they had border problems, consequences, terrorist activities. That's the argument. This is most different systems design. They are not similar to each other, these countries. India and Turkey, clearly, they are not similar. It's something, a good example. Of course, we didn't see. Okay, I'm talking about it. Okay. Okay. Soner Çağatay wrote a book, a recent book about Erdogan, forget about it. And he said that his argument, don't compare Turkey with Egypt. Egypt and Turkey were different countries. It's not meaningful to compare them. If you want to compare Turkey, you need to compare with France. Do you see? He was advocating a most similar system design. And he said that, okay, Egypt and Turkey, they are not similar to each other, but France and Turkey, they are similar to each other. Is it okay? Is it understandable? Yes. For example, when we are discussing secularism or laicite, we are comparing France and Turkey. Or if we are talking about the power of the central state, we can compare Turkey and France. It is possible. When we are talking about, let's say, migration regimes, it is better to compare Turkey with France than comparing Turkey with Egypt. Do you see? They are so different that you cannot compare. The issue is that outcome also is very different. Let me remind you the logic of most different systems. They are not similar to each other, but you have a common characteristics and you have a common outcome. But if you try to compare two systems or two countries, they are totally different in every variable, and they are also different in the outcome variable. You cannot compare. They are not similar to each other at all, including the outcome variable. Most different systems design relies on the similarity of outcome, XX. You can think about the rest. If you don't have XX, if you don't have YY, you cannot think about it. Okay. Ziyaunish is one of the leading scholars of comparative politics. He was comparing Poland and Turkish case, Polish and Turkish cases. Okay, he says both countries are big. They are large countries. Both countries, they had longer periods of state domination for many years. And if you want to include both countries, they had a strong religious presence. In Poland, the church, and in Turkey, Islam. It is possible to compare? He says yes. This is similar system design. Both countries, he says, they are similar. I was a student of Ziyaunish, and he was teaching political economy. He assigned us, and we discussed privatization in Turkey. We compared experiences of Turkey and the UK. Then we compared privatization experiences of Turkey and Mexico. And at the final exam, he asked, compare privatization experiences of Turkey and Mexico. Do you see? A kind of triangulation. It was possible and we did. And I wrote a paper about privatization experiences of Argentina, Turkey, France, and England, for example. Compared more, but my strategy was 2 times 2, 2 similar, 2 dissimilar. That's why it is possible to make that kind of comparison. This Ersöz and Bayrak, they are using a lot of variables, and they are comparing 24 countries, most dissimilar systems. They are using too many variables, and they are using 24 countries. They are classified based on similarities. This algorithm is called multi-dimensional scaling. It's based on similarities within groups and dissimilarities between groups. That's logic. Okay, they are trying to provide, it's a dissimilar systems design. Martina Warning compared Morocco and Turkey. What is it? Is it a dissimilar systems or similar system?
Morocco and Turkey.
Yes. Dissimilar, clearly dissimilar. It's a typical dissimilar system design. Despite all factors, she says the presence of the EU anchor changed the democratization processes. Despite all factors, you cannot compare Turkey and Morocco. They are two different countries. It was a good example. Frank Schimmelpfennig, they compared 9 countries: Belarus, Cyprus, Estonia, Latvia, Montenegro, Romania, Serbia, Slovakia, and Turkey. Okay. 9 different countries. They are not similar to each other, but he tried to develop a model to understand commonalities between these factors. If you are interested, there is a method which is called qualitative comparative analysis. Qualitative comparative analysis, QCA. I'm teaching it at grad level. That's why I won't discuss it. But it's a very nice method to understand all this stuff if number of variables is small. The issue is that it's an old stuff, but it's still meaningful. It's based on 305 articles published in a reputable journal. Story tells, okay, when you look at comparative articles, you see that number of quantitative article increases. Quantitative. Okay. Secondly, number of qualitative articles is declining. But the issue is that number of one country focused studies is declining. One country focused studies, they are not popular anymore. That's why you should compare. It's something important for you because this graph also shows that. You can see there, of course, you don't see this graph. This graph also shows that articles emphasizing on individual level data forms about 12% of total articles. It's becoming dominant. It's becoming popular. What does it mean? They are comparing surveys from one country and surveys from another country. Not only, they don't compare only countries, they are also comparing individuals. Yes?
Why does the qualitative method is in decline?
The issue is that generally in social sciences, especially in mainstream political science, we are looking for causalities. We want to say X leads to Y. Why this country had a democracy and why this country hadn't. And why this country became successful in dealing with economic crisis and why it didn't. Okay, we are trying to understand, we are trying to develop explanations. And in qualitative studies, it's not easy. It's not easy to make generalizations in qualitative studies, but quantitative studies is better. Yes.
So has it's been like that all the time for the? I want to understand what the motivation behind the change of it, because you say in decline, which means that it was more than now. But we see the increase in quantitative. Why wasn't, yani niye tam tersi değil? Yani eskiden niye qualitative fazlaydı şimdi azaldı? Yani çünkü causality hep zaten aradığımız bir şey yani.
We were not looking every time. Now we started. Yeah, it has been 30 years, something like that. Generally, qualitative studies, okay, it's about, there was you will learn in your comparative politics class. But to summarize, comparative politics started after the Second World War. Okay. Americans, they say that we need to understand what's going on in the rest of the world. Okay. They developed some methods. And generally, they use methods of Weber. Because Parsons, do you know Parsons? Sociologist. Because Parsons was inspired of Weber, and Parsons was very popular in America, especially in Chicago University. And this comparative methodology, it has been developed by Almond. Almond and other guys were students of Parsons. That's why they use methods of Parsons and Weber. That's why I skipped it because the class was empty. Generally, I was talking about it, but the logic was very simple. According to Weber, each society, each polity has some functions. Do you remember my question about can we compare fish and human? Yes, they are both of them, they are breathing. Yeah, do you say they have that function? Both of them, they are navigating. There are some organs which perform these functions. That's why in 1945, think that, okay, you are living in the US and you have too many countries, let's say 100 countries, for example, Turkey. Is it possible to compare the US and Turkey? Or is it possible to compare the US with Fiji? Then they developed this methodology of comparison. If you focus on the functions, you can compare. Let's think about, there's a huge long list of functions. I will show it to you, but I won't show it at the classroom. I'm a very nice person. Okay. These are different functions in a society. Socialization, recruitment, communication, interest articulation, interest aggregation, policy making and policy implementation and policy education. In every society, there are that kind of functions. It means that in each society, there are some organs which perform these functions. In the US, you have the presidency for policy making. In Fiji Islands, elderly council. Do you see? Yaşlılar Konseyi. They are performing the same. I have a story. It's a long story, but I will explain. I will tell it. This is, assume that this is 1948. You are an American John. You arrived Turkey. People say that, okay, go there and understand this country and come back. This is your mission. You went to Haydarpaşa, then you pass to Ankara, and you start to look around. Using this format, you have this format. In 1948, what is the most important actor in the political socialization of individuals? 1948. Not the military. CHP, the single party, because they had halk evleri. I'm talking about political socialization. Or Minister of Education, 1948. Who was controlling Minister of Education? Government, and government was under control of the CHP. Is it clear? CHP was controlling socialization, 1948. Okay, what about recruitment? Recruitment means that after having a social identity or political identity, you are affiliating yourself with a political party. Where do you do it? In 1948, halk evleri, for example, or other place. Who controls halk evleri? CHP. Okay. Communication. We are getting information about what's going on in the country. In 1948, what do we have? We have radio under control of CHP, and you have some newspapers such as Ulus. We had, it's something important, we had Hürriyet around 1948, for example, mainstream. There were no mainstream newspapers, they were under control of the government, Cumhuriyet or Ulus, okay? Who controls these newspapers? Okay. Interest articulation. All of us, we have interest. Think about 1948. Which interest groups do we have? Do we have industrialists? 1948. No, there were no industry in Turkey. Do we have labor unions? No. Do we have farmers? Yes. What else do we have? Bureaucrats, perhaps? Okay. Military, perhaps? Okay, do you say? Okay, who controls farmers? CHP, CHP. Okay. Who controls the military? CHP. Who controls the bureaucracy? CHP. Who controls comprador capitalists? People who are working with foreign companies and importing stuff, etc., etc. CHP. Okay. Think about Vehbi Koç. He was a member of CHP. Okay. Interest aggregation. What kind of interest aggregation lobbyists in Turkey, we didn't have. You are farmers, okay, you are farmers and you have a demand from the government. What do? Nothing.
Nothing.
You cannot do it. You have to make a pressure on party. It's something important. For example, 1930s, the experience of Serbest Fırka, for example, was that kind of moment. There are too many that kind of moments. Turkey had a socialist party in 1908, something like that. Turkey had a socialist party in 1920s. Turkey had an opposition party in 1924. But all of them, they are suppressed by whom? CHP. Okay. Policy making, who is conducting this function? The government. And who? As Milli Şef, İsmet, national chef. Okay. Meaning that CHP. And policy implementation, bureaucrats. Until 1950s, there were no independent mayors. Do you know it? The mayors and governors, they were same persons. Yeah. Funny thing that Beyoğlu, Pera, it was the first municipality in Turkey in late 19th century. Because in 1930s, the government decided, CHP, decided to combine these roles. What happened? Governors became mayors. Another funny thing about this issue, at the same time, CHP decided to combine the party and the state. What happened? Governors became party heads. It's something important. Not party heads became governors. This is what happened in Germany. Party heads, local parties became governors. In Turkey, governors became party heads. Yes, question? Mariam, do you? It's something important. And policy education, having a feedback and etc. Okay. At the end of the day, what do you say? What's going on in Turkey? Yeah, everything is under the control of CHP. Okay. You learned. You're not Mr. John and you can fly to another country to understand. Do you see? It was the logic. This is how comparative politics developed. It was same for many countries. They in the US, comparative politics means is the kind of family of regional studies. Do you follow me? Yeah, comparative. Yeah, if I'm I'm a kind of comparativist. But I'm better than I'm more than a comparative. I'm not better, but I'm more than a comparative. But at the end of the day, if I say I'm comparative, it seems that I'm dealing with Turkey and Arab countries, or Turkey and Caucasian countries, or Turkey and Balkan countries. You see, there are some comparatives they are dealing with Turkey and Muslim countries. Regional studies, okay? This is the division of labor. That's why I'm speaking Turkish, I'm speaking French, and I'm speaking English. But I have to be an expert of the Middle East. That's the problem. But that's why if you have a chance to complete your study at the US, you should learn a local language, except Turkey. Arabic, or Russian, or Serbian, or Persian, except, but still you will be a kind of country expert. We are country experts, then we are comparativists. No, we are country experts, then we are regional studies workers, then we are comparativists. But yeah, I'm sure that I have a lot of information about the Euro. I can be a good European comparativist, but no, I'm Turkish. That's why I have to say that. That's the division of labor. It's something important. That's the logic of comparative politics. That's why it answers your question. You need to focus on one country focus studies or small comparisons. But now we have abundant data collected from 40 countries, 20 countries. For example, yesterday or before yesterday, they launched the findings of Arab Barometer, meaning that there are too many information to compare different Arab countries based on individuals. You see, we have Latino Barometer, we have Eurobarometer, we have World Value Survey, we have European Social Survey. Yeah. It's small questions that, I'm working with about polarization. What do you think? Am I working polarization in a comparative way or one country focused way? One country focused way, because I'm collecting data from Turkey. I cannot make comparisons at individual level, but I can make comparisons at country level. From that perspective, I'm a comparativist. But if you think that my arguments are generally based on at the individual level, I don't conduct any other poll in any other country. That's why I'm not a comparativist. And it brings us a very important question of generalization. Are my findings comparable with the experiences of other countries? Because I'm collecting data from Turkey. That's the problem. That's the problem, yeah. Generally, because Turkey, that's the generalization problem. Turkey is accepted as a backward country. They said, okay, it's about Turkey. It's not interesting. You cannot make generalizations based on Turkey. That's the generalization problem. That's why in order to bypass this generalization problem, you have to work with big N, large number of countries, not only one or two countries, because they will tell the same story. It's about Turkey. You cannot make generalization. But you can easily see that they are making generalizations based on the US experience. It was a joke I was making. Eğer Amerika'da olmadıysa hiçbir yerde olmamıştır. Ve Amerika'da olduysa her yerde olmuştur. Okay, I cannot translate to English. Okay, the issue is that you can use too many variables to explain a single phenomenon. People will say that, okay, it's not logical. You can see that there are socioeconomic development affects individual resources, etc., etc. We have a rule, a simple rule. Number of variables should be equal to number of cases minus 1. Accordingly, we have 3, 6, 9 variables. You should have at least 10 cases. But they are using this stuff by using only 2 cases. It's a problem of generalizations. And another issue is that it's very complicated, the situation. I love this because it's a very nice study, older study, but it's very important. It's conducted in Taiwan, something like that. It's focusing on refugee problems. Do you see too many variables? If you have poverty, okay, you will have population growth. And it creates Malthusian skis. Malthusian skis is your natural resources don't increase, but your population increases, and it creates a kind of gap. Okay, this is Malthusian squeeze. It creates a kind of youth bulge. It creates a kind of May surplus. Urbanization leads to population growth, etc. There's too many variables, and they're interacting with each other. And sometimes it becomes meaningless. It's something important. Simple is beautiful. A professor of mine said this same thing, same stuff. Too many variables interacting with each other. No, simple is, if you find a single variable which explains your outcome, it's very nice. But if you want hundreds of variables which explain your outcome, it's not something nice. This is something we are dealing with generally. Okay, thanks for today. Friends, digitals, do you have questions? Mariam is here, that's why we don't have a question. Generally, she's asking. Okay, it means that have a nice day. Oh, question. Thank you for coming. No question. Okay, thank you. Thank you for everything. Have a nice week. Have a nice summer. And good luck in your exam, online exams. Okay. Bye-bye. I'm stopping recording and they will be available.